Well, here we are again in the middle of these COVID-19 times. We're still not sure whether we are, well, we know we're still staying at home in Victoria, but things might change, things might ramp up. But essentially, we're still dealing with most of the same issues that we have been since this began. And someone in the family, I think, that would probably have a greater insight into how everything is going for everyone is the mums of the households. They seem to be copying it a lot. There's homeschooling, there's business to attend to. There's so much that mums do around the house. So I thought I'd check in with a couple of mums as we head towards Mother's Day, not just to find out exactly what's in store for you on Mother's Day, which I suspect will probably just be a piece of toast and a cup of tea in bed this year, which is always good, I think. I've got Edwina Tarrant, who is a music industry and marketing director at 23 Live in Melbourne. Carolyn, weekly columnist for rechargevictoria.com.au, who's also a nutritionist, and Janelle Marsden, owner of Feathertop Winery. I'll start with you, Janelle. I imagine Feathertop Winery, a more regional area. What's it been like in lockdown with your kids?
Yeah, so on the back of bushfires, so we had a double whammy of push ourselves to the limit with the new normal. So when COVID happened, we were sort of a little bit practiced on disruption this year, and I think actually reconnecting at home. I'm going to start with the benefit. It has been really nice to be home with my two. I've got a 15-year-old that turns a 14-year-old that turns 15 this Sunday, Mother's Day, and a 16-year-old. And I think the household actually reconnected, and that part was beautiful. I think the disruption for us has been that one child came home from boarding school and he's been running his own race at boarding school, and now he's trying to run a race with a household. And the other is we live on the property of our winery, which is going through massive changes at the moment, and is very busy trying to scale down whilst trying to still scale sales up to maintain the new business. So positive, we have reconnected, and there's been some really special times, and we've pulled the grate out on the barbecue and had sausages in bread again like we used to when we weren't going to dinner parties, etc. And also, been a bit hectic homeschooling because I'm not very good at chemistry.
I don't think anyone's very good at chemistry. And I think we're all starting to wonder whether or not, why do we need this in the real world unless we're becoming scientists? But, all schooling is essential, I guess. And speaking of schooling, I've just got a small, tiny puppy who's decided to bring something in from outside. So if you can feel the banging there, you know what that is. And that's the other thing, isn't it? It's everything that you kept separate, which was work and home quite often. Now it's all intermingling. How has that affected you personally in terms of the way that you run your business and manage your everyday?
Yeah, so this time last year I had 50 staff, and now I have 3. So across a hotel and a vineyard, all of the hospitality sides of the business have been depleted, and obviously we're unsure of when that will reopen. So there has been a very hands-on approach to the business again, and I suppose for me, I'm back literally answering phones again, talking to customers, which has actually been also nice in some ways. But we're just sharing the ladies and I before we went live was, today I'm in my parents' backyard who live 100 kilometres away doing their shopping so that their 80-year-olds can, stay at home. And, we're just laughing. On one hand, I've got my son saying that he's not connecting on Teams and he can't see his class. And then I've got my mother ringing saying that the Woolworths app won't work and she can't get her shopping. And you just sit there going, how do I, which is the priority? My parents to eat or my, kids to finish their class? So yeah, it is been challenging. And I think, I had a really good saying, you can have everything and you can want for everything, but not all at once. And this does teach us just to say, be calm, get done what we can each day. And what's going to be tomorrow will be tomorrow.
Absolutely. And that's a really positive and optimistic way of looking about it, because I think it could be a situation that you would find yourself in that could be really, really stressful as well. Just having to do everything for everyone. How have you managed it, Carolyn? You're a nutritionist, a parent. How have you managed to make it all fit in?
Look, I have a great support in my husband. He's very much hands-on parenting. You know, he's taken that role as you'd hope every dad would.
Yeah.
And so he does a great deal of the parenting. He's also working very hard at the moment. So we've kind of had to switch around a bit. I usually work at a school, which has closed down. So being at home, I'm now, doing more with my girls than I normally do on a school day, which has been really nice. Janelle talked about reconnecting, and that's one of the positives that I think has come out of this lockdown situation, is that once we've kind of gotten used to the idea that we're all here every day, it's actually been quite I've enjoyed reconnecting with my daughters, and they're at almost 15 and almost 18, and I think we've got a close relationship anyway, but I think this has actually made it a bit closer.
Yeah, so there seems to have been some benefits from this, even though I imagine for all of you, your workload has just gone from what was probably already incredibly high to beyond your imagination. Would that be right?
For me, I think it's just been a different workload. It's a different, my priorities had to change. Being aware, like having high school students learning online is quite different from, say, the ones that have the younger kids who have to be a little bit probably more hands-on. Your older kids are a bit more independent, but then at the same time they when you're watching them and they have to flick back from YouTube, because they get a little bit of privacy to do that sort of stuff. But I think for me it's changed my workload rather than made it more. Do you know what I mean? Like I'm not having to go to a workplace, so the stuff that I would do outside of that time I can get done at home, but still do a bunch of other stuff as well.
That's good. What about you, Edwina? You're in the music industry. It's an industry that is essentially just watched its work disappear overnight, which has been terrifying for all of us. How did you maintain your optimism, especially initially? And I guess we can talk about what happens down the track, but how did you maintain your optimism initially when you've got a family? And part of that job, I guess, is to kind of shield them from the stuff that makes you incredibly anxious. And anyone losing their work makes anyone anxious. It's perfectly normal. What did you do in that situation?
Well, I do feel quite lucky because, in terms of the team that I work with, the 23 group, they've sort of been hugely supportive and also very transparent from the start. My biggest client is TEG Dainty, and, Paul Dainty specialises in tier 1 touring, which of course is international artists. So, of course there's a lot of uncertainty around, obviously at the time we were sort of in the process of cancelling some pretty big shows, including one with Miley Cyrus and one with Robbie Williams. So we sort of came off the back of that, and, everything happened so quickly. We were working from home fairly quickly, and we work sometimes up to a year out on events. So I think initially there was probably a bit of shock just in terms of what was actually happening and what would this mean for us and for our friends in the industry. And also from a work perspective and a work capacity, what are we actually going to be working on? So since then it's continued to unfold. I'm lucky that I've got a partner who's been working a lot. So, I mean, myself, I've had a bit of work to do to sort of, I suppose, undo some of the tours we were working on, moving tours, cancelling some tours. So, initially I've been kept quite busy. So things have dropped off a little bit, but, I do have plans of upskilling and, working on our credentials deck, with a view of hitting the ground running when we come out of this. But to be honest, there hasn't been a lot of time between sort of working 2 or 3 days a week just dealing with the emails. But then homeschooling 2 kids as well. I've been ridiculously busy. Like, you have all these ideas about, I'm going to go for walks and exercise and do all these great things. And I haven't done many great things yet. So, I mean, it's funny because I'm at a point now where I'm trying to sort of get some work done. But also the homeschooling part has sort of impacted that a fair bit. And I'm not doing either thing very well. I'm often told how terrible I am at homeschooling, and yelling and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, look, it's been a juggle, and we here in Melbourne, at least the weather's been great. So sometimes when I'm having a particularly bad day, I can at least get outside and take out some sunshine. And my cafe down the road has stayed open for takeaway coffee, so I feel like I've been winning in that respect.
Yep, that's always a good thing. Mine too. A walk down there is sometimes the highlight of my day, and I don't reckon that's a bad thing. We've really minimised, I guess, our expectations of what is an important experience in the day, haven't we? By reducing our world to something so very small. On the note, though, of getting everything done, how do you feel about all those people saying, oh, you should be getting a new hobby, or, renovating your house while you've got the chance, that kind of thing? Who are these people who have the time to do that with children and with businesses that they're trying to stay afloat? Like, it just astounds me that people have the time to do all of that during this. I don't know. Have you ever felt like you've had time to do anything else other than trying to run the house and be a parent and be an effective, optimistic person during this time? I haven't.
Definitely not. I still haven't cleaned the house properly in the last 6 weeks. So
yeah, makes sense.
I think it does just bring back that saying of where did the time go? Because, there's only so many hours in a day, and there was only so many tasks to do across our world. So what has taken up all that extra time? Because no one that I know seems to have any spare time yet. Like, it hasn't yet caught up. And even you can say, well, we're homeschooling, but the teachers are still working equally as hard to deliver the homeschooling. So, it is a very interesting, dinner party discussion to say, the time actually hasn't yet come back to us. And even though we're connected, maybe the conversations are more thorough and deeper, and conversations at the dining room table are longer than we used to have. And, I did cook a rhubarb cake the other day, and my kids asked me if I was having a stroke because, I just don't cook. But, it was a recipe that, again, my mum had sent me, and there was rhubarb in the garden, and they said, are you a gardener? No, I'm just a custodial of a bit of land that seems to grow itself.
Oh, that is fantastic. See, things like that. Perhaps we're finding value in things like that that we may or may possibly just walked over or ignored prior. What things have, to all of you, what things have felt like they've become more important during these COVID-19 times?
For me, having kids that having teenagers in this kind of world as we're in at the moment is can be quite stressful for them. Their brains, what they're exposed to and what they read and all that kind of stuff. I think that's why I've actually really enjoyed that time reconnecting with them, because we've been able to, we don't even talk about that stuff, but we've been able to kind of reground ourselves to that local kind of level. It's like what's happening right in our house. It's like these 4 walls almost, rather than and focusing on those relationships rather than getting too caught up in whether it's social stuff or whether it's what's in the media or whatever. It's that all that stuff has become secondary, and I think the relationship side of it has definitely been something that I've felt.
Oh, that's lovely. What about the other two of you? Janelle, what have you felt has become more important?
So I think my own values has become more important. So I think being so enthralled with businesses and lots of staff and lots of needs of all of those other people, the footprint for me has come back the ripple effect has come back to that sort of one or two first ripples. And I agree with Caroline. There's less talk about what everyone else is doing or their issues, and there's much more a reflection about, what is actually important to me and my children, and where do we want to be. And out of disaster, they say, it takes 10 years to get back to that point. So, how old will I be in 10 years? I'll be 55. Where do I want to be? How old will my children be after this recovery? So what's the next 10 years look like from them? They'll be 25. They will be, they'll be adults. So I've really cherished re-establishing what values are important to me. And I think, the frugalness of, we haven't needed as much money. We haven't needed as much stuff. We opened a store on the side of our pub, which is a fresh food swap for people for things in their garden and alike. And, I think those sort of postings of fresh food and simple food again, and, not people sort of, overly reviewing food, and that sort of, I don't want to bring up a brand here, but there's been so much hype about credentials about food and critiquing food, and it's really nice just to have some fresh tomato on toast.
Really getting back to those natural ingredients and enjoying them for what they are, without all the extra bits.
Simpler.
Yeah, I love that. Edwina, what about you? What do you feel has become more important to you during this time?
I think the girls probably touched on it before. I think just that whole reconnection. And I think, often we're working at such a pace where, I know for myself, I wasn't spending a lot of time at home. So really just appreciating the simple things, the smaller things, and just getting back to basics in a way. I've sort of it's taken me a long time to even start to unwind. I think from years and years of late nights, not out in venues necessarily, but just, working on a laptop and whatnot. So it's
your work would be 24/7, I would imagine.
Yeah, it is a lot dealing with, excuse me, agents overseas and whatnot. So I think, just getting back to basics and having that reconnection, and also just starting to exhale, I think has been important over these weeks.
What have you told your kids about this time? I think that's probably one of the most difficult parts of going through this. What tools have you given them to be able to deal with it without, I guess, making them anxious or making them worried about things that obviously we as adults will worry about, but they're probably not ready to. What tools have you given them during this time?
I think I've been quite lucky with my kids. They're a bit younger, being 9 and nearly 4. And I know that the conversation started at school, obviously before the schools closed. So there was a bit of an education process already there. And I attempted to sit down with my oldest child and sort of say, do you want to talk about this? And, I'd been sent some tools or some really easy to digest sort of statements about what the coronavirus was, and kid-friendly, I suppose, with diagrams and even sort of, some clips on YouTube. But my son sort of knew all about that and, didn't really feel like he needed to discuss it. I know about that. I already know.
Yeah, Mum, good on you, Mum, I know.
Yeah, yes, I'm like, okay. And, he could be quite an anxious kid as well. So, he's done exceptionally well, a lot better than what I thought. And I think, from the kids that I do know who haven't been allowed to have play dates and see their friends and have that interaction or do Auskick or go to basketball, speaking for my own family, they've done a lot better than what I would have expected. So going back to your question, I haven't really had to, go into a lot of detail and tell them a lot because they're sort of seeing it and hearing it everywhere. And I think, my kids are just that little bit younger, so they might not sort of be reacting in a way that the older kids might be in terms of a different type of anxiety.
Yeah. Carolyn, what about you? What have you armed them with in this time?
I'm pretty much the same in the sense that my kids, they read a lot of stuff online. They know the news stories. They're way ahead of, they've read the news before I have. They're very interested in all that sort of stuff. So, they are educating themselves, I think. But I think the staying at home, I think they've actually really enjoyed it. And not just not going to school, staying at home, but actually having that, just the four of us really interacting. We always holiday really well together. So it's one of those things, it's like, there's not that bickering and not that, niggling that can happen. So I think they've kind of, their maturity level is enough that they kind of are getting it, and they feel safe anyway with us. It's almost like a little bit of a cocoon. We're all wondering what we're getting, are we going to come out like butterflies or slugs at the end of it? But I think they feel safe. So yeah. I think it's still a little bit of an abstract concept.
And Janelle, what have you done to, I guess, help them through this? The advice you've given them, help them with things that might make them anxious.
Yeah, so I think the friend connectivity was probably the biggest impact for them, and creating beautiful, thoughtful, remote gifts for friends for birthdays and trying to still celebrate in a different way was kind of some of the early stages. I think the children teenagers have had a different lifestyle because we live on 60 acres and we live in a regional centre, so there's not that day-to-day interaction with COVID. Like, we're very protected in a bubble. So I think probably the most profound is I've watched them through many levels of social media question the future around what the world will look like, what the economy will look like. They're listening to the statistics about employment, and there's a whole discussion happening about be an entrepreneur and be a job creator, not a job taker. How do you find a niche for the future? So there's been quite profound, they will only have a career post-COVID. They'll only have travel post-COVID. Like, their business will be online like we are sharing at the moment. Like, we're in adaptation. They'll be in normality. And it's been a really interesting process for them to look at what their future will be, and the jobs that they're talking about and the gaps in the market are things that, maybe the three of us aren't even thinking about yet.
Yeah.
So I think that's been the most profound, and encouraging them to create their own discipline about education, learning, and what that looks like, because, everyone's in the same situation. So unless you embrace it to the max, you won't have the opportunity, because you'll just be the one that got left behind, because there's no sweep happening right now for them. So I think I'm seeing a creation in them of ownership of their life. It's like they've matured through this in their own, responsibility. And because we're all at home and the fridge is getting emptied quicker and the dishes are piling up faster and the house is getting dirtier, we've had a little bit of a regime of, pitching in, so dishes are getting done together after dinner now, and bread and peanut butter is getting put back in the fridge now rather than left on the bench. And, some of those things about communal living, where we probably, as, mums or dads, probably picked up a little bit more than definitely I picked up a little bit more than I have been in the last few weeks.
Well, they get to see how everything works if they're around you. It's not like it just magically appears because someone went and did it. That's probably really good for them, I would imagine. All right, this is the curly topic. As parents during this time of COVID-19, what is it that you let your children doing that you would never have let them do before? I've got friends, I talked to them the other day and they said there's no way they're getting online and playing games with their mates, but now it's the only way they can talk to their mates. So they let them play games online with their friends, and it's a way that they have their own little community message groups. So things like that have gone out the window for a couple of the parents that I know. What about you? Have there been similar situations?
Yeah, the same. So, don't go to bed with your device and play games and connect. Yep, we're doing that one. Go to bed at a decent time and, turn your lights off. Yep, we're not doing that because we don't have to catch a school bus at a certain time in the morning.
Yep.
Breakfast in bed, food in bed. You know, there just is, there's, you know, the downtime is really down. Like, we're really kicking back when we do kick back. And because the mornings have been busy and the kids are getting up at different times, especially when they're in school holidays, you know, there's a very slow morning, whereas our mornings were super busy before sort of 7:30 to get on school buses and travel an hour to school. Now it's like, oh, we're having brunch at 10:45.
Yeah, that's the same. The morning routine, I think, is the biggest one. The morning, well, the morning and the evening. During the day is not so much a change, but the morning is definitely slower paced.
Yeah.
And the evening is far more relaxed in terms of, you know, there's not as strict a bedtime or anything like that. You know, I mean, they are probably more online than they were, but you know. There's not a lot of harm as long as you're still across it. There's not.
And can we mute Caroline when we say this? The nutritionist is like, you know, the government might be flattening the curve, but I'm fattening the curve. And you know, we are definitely eating a whole lot more trash than we ever have.
And I think that's what I was saying before about coming out of the cocoon. You know, how we're going to come out, because I think some people, like, I walk the beach in the morning, and I've seen people out there that I've never seen before, and I think they're taking that opportunity to actually do a lot more exercise, and it's actually quite interesting. I've watched particularly this one young kid, a boy who started out in the beginning, he was a bit pudgy, and I saw him this morning and I thought, far out, he's lost a lot of weight. So he's actually taken that opportunity while he's in lockdown, I guess, to change himself. So that's really interesting, I think.
Edwina, what is it in your house that you've just gone, oh, well?
I was just saying that, yeah, the screen time thing's gone out the window, and that's how the kids sort of hang out at the moment. Yeah, we've been doing a bit of junk food. I find that, you know, my boy is literally eating me out of house and home. So come 10:30, he's on to his like 4th or 5th snack, and I just am running out of food. So there's definitely some unhealthy choices getting thrown in there when I have nothing left. So I think, yeah, springtime and food are definitely some issues we're going to have to work on when we come out of this.
Oh, I think we all need to relax with ourselves. I'm no professional, but it feels good to go easy on yourself and be not too self-critical in a time like this. We're all navigating a new world that we've never experienced before, so don't feel bad about it. I say we can sort it out on the other side. Mother's Day, which is happening on Sunday. What do you think that's going to entail this year?
Well, for me, it's like I'm not massive. Like I don't really think it's that, you know, important. I think we should be, you know, treating our mothers and you know, having our children treat mothers and fathers
every day. They should treat
all
them
year round, you know. But look, knowing my partner, he will probably arrange some special breakfast in bed or something like that, and a present, you know. That's kind of where we're at.
Or maybe a cheeky drive to a park somewhere. You should pretend to do some exercise. I don't know. It's so funny how we've just scaled our expectations down. I love it. And what about you, Janelle?
Yeah, so I'm a big fan of breakfast in bed. So yeah, I've put that vote in. I am sharing the day with my daughter's 15th birthday. So I did ask her what meal she would like and what meal I will own, but we've decided to share both. So we've put the boys in charge of food, and I will be happy if it's tomato on toast or something super fancy. I'll own whatever comes my way.
That sounds like heaven. Perfect stuff. And what about you, Edwina?
I'm going to put in an order for banana and Nutella pancakes. I'm probably going to get some sort of homemade card with a nice IOU of some sort, so I can sort of scratch my shopping itch at a later stage. I'm probably going to harass my partner to do stuff around the house that he's been avoiding doing, and I'll use Mother's Day as an excuse to get that done.
Okay.
And then I will probably open a bottle of the good stuff versus the cheap stuff.
Mhm, mhm. That all sounds fabulous, and I want to join you all for those, well, for the bottle of the good stuff, that's for sure. Um, and just before we finish, thank you all so much for your contributions today. What would you recommend other parents at this time? What's your bit of advice for getting through it?
I think,
Maybe
sorry, Myf,
I'll start with Carolyn. Go.
I think you hit the nail on the head before when you said about giving yourself a break. You know, don't be hard on yourself. You don't have to. We talk about homeschooling. It's not homeschooling. You've got your kid at home and they're doing school. It's not the same as homeschooling. You know, and give yourself a break and have you know, enjoy that junk food or whatever you want to call it. You know, enjoy the wine and just take the time. I think this slowing down has been, for me anyway, I've loved the pace that it's taken. You know, my life has just become a little bit less frantic, and you know, I'm actually, like you said before, just give yourself a break.
Yeah. Edwina?
I agree with all of that. You know, sometimes it's a hard thing to practice. It's easy to say it, but it's hard to put it into practice. But yeah, I think this is a really unique time in our lives. We'll never have this happen again, touch wood. Yeah, so I suppose it's navigating your way through it as best you can, and, you know, and not being too hard on yourself coming out of this, and what you indulge in during this time, and you know,
Yeah.
try and appreciate the small moments that you have and take some sort of positive out of it. But in short, I agree, let's try not to be too hard on ourselves, because it can be a bit of a slippery slope.
Yeah, and maybe let's take it into the future as well.
Yes.
I think that can be really helpful, because I know myself, I'm really hard on myself when it comes to standards at work, or standards when people visit, or how you should be doing things. I think we've taken out a lot of the shoulds, which is really nice, and just doing as best we can is enough, I think. And going a bit easier on ourselves. Janelle, can we come around for some of the good stuff, since we've been drinking the bad stuff?
Yeah. And we've got a hashtag Mum's the Best on online. So we've got a good discount. If you've forgotten to do something, just give Mum a voucher and she can shop for herself.
I love it.
Yeah, look, I just ditto everyone else's comments. I just think, you know, go gentle. But you know what? Just have a good laugh at yourself. Like, it is kind of the license to muck up and just take a bit of a giggle. So, you know, the fact that, you know, I was on the phone call I was on before this, I accidentally, you know, left the speaker on, and I told my kids I got donuts for dessert, and the whole meeting erupted. I was like, well, that could have been more awkward than that was. You know, so it's like, you know, normally you'd be like, oh my God, I'm so embarrassed. That was such a professional phone call, and I just was talking to my kids about donuts. But, you know, just laugh it off. It's been super stressful. We're under enormous financial pressure, probably most of us. Our worlds have changed. We're unsure of it. But you know, what can we do about it? We don't have the power to change it. So, you know, just live it, have fun, laugh, connect, breathe.
Well, that's a beautiful way to end this. Thank you so much for all of your insights today. It's just been lovely. Thank you.
Thanks, Myf.
Thank you.